first couple things, a little bit of review. Some of it is going to review and new stuff depending on how much you know itself. Okay. So 2.1 is called the rectangular coordinates and graphs. Okay. So before I go into the main stuff of graphing, because I know pretty much, from my experience, people hate graphing, when it comes to it, but it's actually not that bad when it comes to it. So in this class, we'll learn a couple ways of graphing, but I'm going to show you one that's going to be, done for you no matter what. So you could use this, however you want, and it's going to always be true. So if you hate the other ways, at least, well, I think we're going to go through, 4 different ways how to graph, and hopefully you like one of them. That's when it comes to it. And you can just pick your favorite one, and you can always do that forever. It's never gonna, be bad to you when it comes to it. So the first way we're gonna learn here. So the first thing we're gonna do is figure out how to plot a point on the XY plane, just in case you forget, right? So if this is review, good. So if it's been a while, this is a little review when it comes to it. So basically, how do we plot points like this, like 4, 3 on the XY plane? Okay. Now it's always gonna be in the format X, Y. And you kind of think like a floor plan, just on the floor, and you can only go left, right, up, down. You can't go diagonal, when it comes to it. Kind of think like a checkerboard when it comes to it. So when it comes to the x-axis can only move right to left, right? And you always start from the center. The y-axis, which is here, you can only go up and down. So it's literally left, right, up, or down. No diagonals, what you can do when it comes to it. Okay. So, and again, you always start from the center. Right? So, for example, let's suppose we want to plot the point 3, 4. Right? So this is saying up 3, and I'm sorry, what am I saying? Across 3, so 3 to the right, and then up 4. Okay. So starting from the center, you go to the right 3 because it's positive 3, and then you go up 4. And you just make a dot, and that's that point, right? So one thing, again, review, a couple people make is they make a couple more dots. They just make a dot here, make a dot there, make a dot there. The whole process is, this is the work to get to this single dot. So there should be only 1 dot per point itself. So when we do this, it should only be 3 points in total for our scenario. Okay. Next one, -1, 9. So this is saying we're going to go to the left to 1, that's negative, to the left 1, and then up 9 paces. So again, starting from the center, go to -1 on the x-axis, and then go up 9. So it's a little off the chart, but I think you guys get the picture here. So let's say roughly there. And then the last one is -4, -8. So again, this is saying we're going to the left 4, and then now we're going to go down 8 from there, right? Because it's negative, so down. So to the left 4, -4, and then down 8, which is way down here roughly. And there we go. Right. So again, just a little review. Any questions here? How to plot points? Just in case you guys forgot, the review. Cool. All right, good. So knowing that concept, right? Now let's go into the second major part of this stuff here, which is the distance and midpoint formula. Okay. So when it comes to the distance and midpoint formula, it's a little different. So the distance formula says how much distance is from one point to another point. So if I would make a get out a ruling stick and just measure from here to here, that's the distance formula. So I want to figure out how much distance that is. Is it inches, feet? So right from one end to that. So in other words, you make a straight line. Okay, that's what this means. The midpoint formula is not the same as the distance formula. A lot of people get that confused. The midpoint formula says what is the exact middle point from here to there. Okay, so on this line, where is exact middle, and what's that point going to be? Is it here? Is it in there? Is it whatever, right? That's what the midpoint formula represents, is this point is exactly in the middle between this point and that point. Okay? So distance formula means find the distance, the actual length, like ruler length. Midpoint means I want to find the exact point right in the middle between 2 points itself. So again, you can kind of think of it, if you look at you to the door, right? The distance between the door to you is, finding the distance. It's a straight line like a ruler. The midpoint is, okay, what's the exact middle from the door to me? What represents that point itself, okay? And again, for each one, we have different scenarios when it comes to it. So distance is abbreviated for D. It kind of makes sense, right? Little d for distance. And midpoint, we have capital M, again, for midpoint there. Okay? Now, given 2 points, x1, y1, and x2, y2. So again, like say, for example, given 2 points, all we're going to do is plug it into our formula here and slowly break it down. Again, so now it just goes back to order of operations, right? So parentheses first. So we're first going to subtract, then square the number, then add them up, and then finally at the very end, take the square root. So it's a lot of simplifying when it comes to the distance. The midpoint's much easier. We're just going to add both x's values, add both y values, and just divide by 2. Much easier to find the midpoint. But again, both of them come into play drastically once you get to understand this kind of stuff in college, higher college algebra, and especially in calculus and stuff like that. Okay, so that's enough talking, right? Let's try to put this into play. Okay, so let's find the distance and the midpoints for each individual case in this case, right? So what I like to do is let's look at A, right? So we have points 3, 4, and 9, 0. And notice we have x1, y1, x2, y2. So what I always like to do is to write them down. So this is going to be x1, this is y1, this is x2, and this is y2. That way I know what goes where in our equation. So let's just start with a distance, because that's the one that takes the longest to do. Right, so it's going to be d equals 2 the square root. Okay, and now it's the x's subtract, so it'll be x2, which is 9, minus 3, and that's going to be squared. Okay. And then plus y2, so that's going to be 0, minus y1, which is 4, and that's also squared. And now we just simplify. So 9 minus 3 is 6. 0 minus 4 is negative 4. Just keep going. This is 36. This is 16. And I do not know what 36 plus 16 is. It's like 54, I think it is. Oh, 52, off by a little bit, yeah. So the distance is the square root of 52. And you can leave it just like that if you like when it comes to it. You don't have to simplify it if you don't want to. So there's our distance. Hopefully not too bad, right? Hopefully much easier than what we did yesterday when it comes to this. So chapter 2 is actually not as bad as chapter 1 is, or the beginning part. Okay. And the next thing, we just find the midpoint, right? So the exact midpoint, so the exact middle of this portion here. So that's now we're going to use this one, which is much easier, because now we're just going to be adding the 2x values and just dividing by 2, and adding the 2y values, and again, just dividing by 2. So 9 plus 3, and 0 plus 4. And again, we just simplify. So 9 plus 3 is 12. And just this can be 4. And again, well, now we just divide. So the midpoint is 12 divided by 2 is 6. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So the midpoint is 6, 2. So again, if we would plot these 2 points and plot this one, this is the exact middle from here to there and from there to there. So any questions on our first example? So far, so good? Okay. All right. So let's just keep going. Let's try the next one. So again, we'll do, this is x1, y1, x2, y2. Do the distance. So it'll be x2, so that's 2. So this one got to be careful. It's a minus a negative 12. Let's got to be careful about that one. So be careful your negative, right? 10 minus 4 squared. So this time, these two negatives end up being a positive, so it's actually 2 plus 12 now, so that's going to give you 14. And here 10 minus 4 is going to give you 6. There. So 14 squared is 196. And then adding them gives you 232. And I don't think you could take the square root of that nicely. No, you can't. So there we go. There is our distance. Everybody comfortable there? Assuming that's okay. Next up, find the midpoint. So much easier, right? Add them up. So add the two x's. So 2 now minus 12 divided by 2. And add the y. So 10 plus 4 divided by 2. So 10 minus 12 is negative 10. And then negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. 10 plus 4 is 14. And then 14 divided by 2 is 7. And there you go. There is your midpoint. Questions there at all? Good, good. All right, good. Glad. All right, so in that case, let's just finish up the last example so we can keep going. All right, so again, x1, y1, x2, y2. So 1 minus a negative 2. And then this is x2. 3 minus 8 squared. So this becomes, again, positive. So that's going to be actually 3 squared. And this is going to be negative 5 squared. So 9 plus 25. And that gives you, what, 34? So there's your distance, square root of 34. All right, and then lastly, our midpoint. So add the two x's, so 1 minus 2 over 2, and 3 plus 8 over 2. So this time we're going to have fractions. So 1 minus 2 is negative 1, so this is just negative 1/2. 8 plus 3 is 11. So you can leave it just like that. There you go. Right, so before we go any further, any questions on distance formula or midpoint formula or how to calculate it at all? No. Definitely have an advantage since you guys are online, right? So you don't have to memorize these ones, which is even better, right? Okay. All right, so in that case, let's keep going. So next major part is graphing. Everybody's favorite. But again, I'm going to try my best to make it nice and make it simple for you. Now, I realize what happened here. For some reason, it's supposed to be that. So we'll just end up doing our own t-chart. Not t-chart, but table itself. So I'll just make it over here. I don't know why it ended up being black, but it was supposed to be a graph over here, which is fine. We'll just do our manual one here. Okay. All right, so graphing. So when it comes to graphing in line, the easiest way and the most simplest way to do it is just literally make a t-table and then pick some values for the x variables and then plug into the equation and see what you get for the y values. Okay, so The simplest one is just plug and chug. This is another scenario where a lot of people say just literally just plug and chug to see what you get out. So what I mean by a t-table is literally do this. Literally going to make a t-table. Okay, where these are the x values. So these are the values you're going to pick personally, and then we're going to plug into the equation, and these are the y values we're going to get out, respectively, for each individual x value we choose. Okay. So before we go to examples, here's a quick little example, give you guys how to do it. Now remember, you could literally pick any x values you want. I just chose 0, 1, and 2. You could have chose -5, so forth, and down line when it comes to it. Okay, and you'll see that in a little bit. So first off, I plug in 0 into here. So you plug in 0 for x, and you see what you get out. So plug in 0, we get -5. So therefore, this is now the xy coordinate pair. So when it comes over here, we're just going to plot 0, -5. So 0, -5. That'll be our first point. Next, we plug in 1. So we just plug in 1 in for x. So 3 minus 5 is -2. So that's our next point. 1, -2. So 1 to the right, down 2. And then lastly, we plug in 2. So 2 in for x. So 2 times 3 is 6. 6 minus 5 is 1. So that's our last pair. So 2, 1. So 2 to the right, and then 1 up. And then we just make a line through as best you can to the dots. Mine's a little crooked, but it should be a straight line. And voila, you just graphed a line. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Any questions there at all? All right, so in that case, you just quickly do an example so you can see how it would go into play. So let's suppose we want to graph this line here. Okay, so let's make a t-chart. Okay. All right, and I'll leave it up to you guys. So don't make the x values too big, but go ahead and pick 3 x values. So anybody want to shoot out a number you guys want to try?
1.
Good, 1. Anything else? You can put it in the chat or just get it out. So 5, okay. And 1 more.
8.
8, perfect. So that's when you can literally pick any x values you want. That's the cool thing about it when it comes to it. So we're gonna do the same thing. So now we're gonna plug in each respective x to see what the expected y value is gonna be. So first, plug in 1 into here. So gives me that. Well, that's gonna be -2. And then -2 plus 3 ends up being 1. So our first point is 1, 1. So if I go over here, 1 to the right, up 1, there is our first point. And then we just rinse and repeat for the other 2 ones, right? So now we plug in 5 in for y, sorry, 5 in for x, so it's going to be y equals -2 times 5 plus 3. So that gives you -10. And then -10 plus 3 is -7. So next point is 5, -7. So 5 to the right, and then down 7. It's like 8, huh? A little messed up here. Right there. I'm on a slant, I can't really see. There we go. Right, and the last one, 8. So we plug in 8. This is -16. So -16 plus 3 is -13. So it's going to be a little off the chart, but yeah, don't worry, not too bad, right? So there's 8, say 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 down here, negative 13. So all the way to 8, and then down to 13. Here. And then lastly, we just make a line connecting all the dots. And there's your line. Questions here at all? Now, you don't have to put positive. You can make negatives. And, you know, I could have plugged in, let's say, like -1, and it still be on this line, for instance. So if I plugged in -1, we get here. So -2 times -1 is now a +2. And then 2 plus 3 gives me 5. So if I plot this point, it's going to be -1, and I up 5. And look at that, it's actually right on the line, right? So you can literally pick any points you want for the x's when it comes to it. It doesn't always have to be positive if you want. You can, pick some negatives. You can pick 0 if you like, right? It could be literally any number. You may want to be too big because it might be off the graph, but pick some small numbers and you'll be perfectly fine for that. So, any questions on the last part of section 2.1 about graphing at all? Graphing a single line using a t-chart. Definitely want like 3 questions like this on the test.